Professor Clarke, I said naval power, but this carrier strike group is not as big as perhaps it should be or would have been previously.
Well, in terms of Royal Navy ships, no, it's smaller than the CSG Carrier Strike Group 2021 that was based on the Queen Elizabeth that went 4 years ago, because it has fewer Royal Navy support ships. So normally, when a carrier goes anywhere, it takes 2 destroyers for air defence, 2 frigates for anti-submarine warfare, a submarine, and then 1 or 2 support ships. Now, this one is taking 1 destroyer, HMS Dauntless for air defence, is taking 1 frigate, looks like HMS Portland, although HMS Iron Duke is also standing by for it. But I think we're only sending it with one Astute-class submarine and 1 support ship, the Tide Spring. So it's going with roughly, as it were, 2/3 the size of the support group it would normally go with. And we're going to rely on allies to provide the others. So, I mean, 1 ship that will be joining it, the Norwegians are putting in the Roald Amundsen, which is a frigate, which will go with it for the whole journey. Canada, interestingly, is putting in the Ville de Quebec, which is a frigate, and that will join it, certainly for the Atlantic and I think the Mediterranean part of it. There may be a Spanish frigate joining it. We're not sure about that one yet. And as it gets into the Indian Ocean, a New Zealand frigate, the Tikanau is due to join it in the Indian Ocean. And I suspect that there'll be some Japanese ships joining it as well.
This is fascinating, isn't it? So this is Operation HIMARS. It's being run by the British Royal Navy. Has all those allies joining it, and it's not EU, it's not NATO. This is something else.
That's
something
right.
Unique.
This is partners, ad hoc partners coming together. And in a way, I mean, to be sort of flip about it, it's a bit like a charity walk. I mean, somebody said this carrier on its gap year. It's taking its gap year, and as it goes, other people come to support it just to show that they care. Well, I mean, there's a bit more to it than that, because it will be taking part in some very big exercises, very complex exercises, particularly the one off Australia. About almost 39 countries will be involved in that, and they'll involve other ships, aircraft, and ground support. I mean, 900 British troops are going to be part of this at some point. So,
Marines.
So apart from the sailors and all the air staff on board for all the aircraft, at some point 900 troops will join, and so it'll be exercising all sorts of different things. And as you say, it's not NATO, it's not EU, it's Royal Navy and its friends around the world working together. And it shows, if Britain's not the biggest power in the world, militarily, it certainly isn't, but it's one of the powers that can convene. It has the power of convening.
That's really interesting.
People join things that Britain does, and that's a power, a sort of soft power, that the Royal Navy in particular is very keen to demonstrate.
And Michael, this would be something that's been, years in the planning, that they were going to deploy this? But it comes obviously at a time of turmoil.
These sort of things were planned before the carriers were finished, because when you've got a carrier in the water at £3 billion each, you think, what are we going to do with it? And obviously sending them on a world tour is a good thing to do diplomatically. And when the Queen Elizabeth went in 2021, that was a fairly sensitive time, because it was COVID at the time, and the COVID restrictions globally restricted what the carrier could do. They couldn't dock in Japan, for instance.
Right.
They anchored and looked at Japan, but they couldn't go there. This is much different, and my goodness, has the world changed between 2021 and now. And so this carrier strike group is politically much more sensitive, and militarily too, carries messages and is genuinely going to exercise and, as it were, create common ways of working with 40 different allies.
Yeah, and obviously there are strike groups out there at the moment. I think the US have got...
they've got 11. I mean, we've got one. Well, we've got 2 carriers. We can only put one of them to sea at a time with adequate support. But if we're always working with our allies, technically we could have 2 carriers, 2 carrier battle groups with friends, with allies. The Americans got 11.
Wow.
And nobody's got anything like that. I mean, the Chinese have got 3 carriers. The first one they had was Ukrainian, funnily enough, and they've built 2 others. And their latest one is just off, or has been off Taiwan.
Well, you mentioned China because this strike group will be going into the South China Sea, and will show. Is it a show of force, a show of determination? What's the message when
they won't commit
through?
themselves to where they'll go? Quite rightly, they won't be there for a little while, and so the Chinese are threatening them. Don't think about coming into the South China Sea
at all. The entirety of it.
Because they claim it's all their territory, which it isn't. And there's a concept. There's an operation called FONOPS, which is Freedom of Navigation Operations. And so I think it's quite likely that the carrier, or some of the carriers group, some of the carrier ships, will go through the South China Sea just to show that these are international waters and China can't claim them. So I suspect they will, whatever the Chinese say. But the bigger question is, would they go through the Taiwan Strait? Now, that too is international waters. The Chinese would be very worried about that. The Queen Elizabeth didn't go through the Taiwan Strait. We wondered at the time if it would, and the Chinese would definitely regard that as provocative. So they won't say until they get there, because the situation might be different. If I were a betting man, I would say, I'll have a bet with you now. OK, I'll say some elements of the task group will go through the South China Sea, maybe the carrier itself.
Prince of Wales may go through.
Might go through, but none of them will go through the Taiwan Strait. That would be my bet.
OK.
I'll have a tenner with you.
We'll do a tenner. We'll check in a few months' time.
And come on, there's a poignant element to this as well. The last Prince of Wales was a British battleship which sank in December 1941 with the repulse off Singapore.
Right.
And they'll be going past the spot where the previous Prince of Wales, and that was one of the tragedies for Britain of the Second World War, the loss of the Prince of Wales and repulse, which destroyed Britain's situation in the Far East, in the middle of the war. When they go past that area, I'm sure there will be some poignant ceremonies.
Poignant moment,
now the new Prince of Wales is going over the wreck of the old one.